Hi, it's Ryan and welcome to another video. This one is about 5 tips for playing Infinity. These are some tips that I've picked up from playing and interacting with the community that will help out and what I think will be generally useful as you play the game. Now, I'm not the best player, so take these with a grain of salt, but largely they're coming from the community at large and not me. I'm just collating them. My goal is to provide 5 generally useful tips so that you're more aware of what's happening in the game, how to make the best decisions at a given moment. Hopefully you'll learn something, and if you think I've missed anything, let me know in the comments below, and if you like the video, remember to like it. Tip 1. Learn the order expenditure sequence and the FAQs. Tip 1 being learn the rules isn't really fair, but I'm calling out a specific rule. Everyone knows how to resolve a rule, how damage works, and how an order works. But what I'm saying here is you spend like 90% of your time working through these rules. So maybe it's best you can know how to rattle off without thinking. Specifics, why? Well, it's good to know why dodging as a second action doesn't provoke ARO. For some, knowing it might not be good enough, but knowing why helps you explain it to others and avoid them, and maybe yourself, from feeling like you got a solid piece killed because of a rule you didn't know exists. Which I think has happened to most, and it's not particularly nice. Other thing is that it's very helpful to know exactly when you're measuring for AROs or when you can place a template. 90% of the time this is fairly simple and intuitive, but it's that 10% of the time that can catch you up or get you caught out as you try to do something a little odd, but that is probably supported. So what are the standout tidbits here I'm specifically focusing on? First, remember all at once. So that means all AROs, orders, movements happen all at once, but at least in a set order. This means 2 important things. You can largely shoot at any point in your movement, splitting bursts and targets so long as it's a valid shot. This enables peeking, slicing the pie, and mad dashes to score objectives. This also means that all exchanges are self-contained. You can declare discover with one model and wait to shoot the marker with the next. Simultaneously, you can't save a fire team from getting hosed from a HMG by a lone Galwegian smoke dodge. The next tidbit is that all the fun stuff happens in the resolution phase at the end of the order expenditure sequence, such as state changes, taking wounds, revealing/getting discovered, and finally dodge move and transmutation. What this means is that if you can move into line of fire or zone of control and not get ARO, which can set up long skill actions such as triangulated fire, speculative attack, or berserking or hacking. It also means that sappers and transmutation can peek round corners or move out of corners as the size changes if they follow the replacing models and marker rules. All this can set you up to be a little more efficient, as possibly saving precious orders. The final tidbit is a big one, but that's technically number 2. Right, so knowing point 2 and 4 in the order expenditure sequence can really help you out here, both reactively and actively. Well, it helps to know who is about to hack you or try to dodge round a corner and template you on your next order. Let's talk reactive turn first. What you're allowed to do is after your opponent has declared their first skill and any movement is check for any valid AROs from your model. So you can check line of fire, but not measuring ranges though, and you can measure zone of control from the active trooper of that order. Checking to see if any troopers or game elements, such as mines or repeaters, are in zone of control, which could drastically change the next skill declared, or if it's after the second order, alter a game plan for a unit if it lives. Usually hackers are basically always doing this with their own zone of control and repeaters hacking area to see if things are within that zone, but the active player can also take advantage of this. Since we are measuring from the active unit, we can use this to figure out, say, as a hacker, if you need to hack back, or you can keep going around to do whatever else you're planning on doing. This is especially nice if you're hackable, but not wanting to walk into repeaters. Although if you've already walked in, you're going to have to reset, or walk away, or do something else and hope the hack fails. However, more helpfully, if you're the active player and you have maybe a shotgun, pistol, grenade, and you're about to huck that at someone or smoke dodge, you can measure your zone of control to check for arrows and use that knowledge to determine what you want to do. Now, I'm being specific here. You're checking zone of control, so no more than 8 inches. If something is like 10 inches away, you won't know any more than its out width of 8 inches. This is still helpful, as you can now say, well, the pistol is now at bad range, but my rifle is probably more effective, so that's what I'll use. Or if you're, say, a warband and want to nail a smoke throw that's a little further away, but you're worried about it going over 8 inches, you now have a lot more information to make a good throw. This also applies to regular grenades, which can be a good counter to fire teams, or use the information to set up a speculative attack on a fire team through a wall, or on a repeater on a rooftop. Really, what this does is provide even more information in the close combat battle scenarios that can lead to a successful roll and can help you put your opponent in a difficult situation. However, always remember zone of control measurements are open. As such, your opponent is getting this information as well, and good players will formulate plans with that. Tip 3 I've mentioned before in the tag video, go watch it, it's a good video, about the breakpoint of DA versus AP, and it bears repeating. Lots of weapons in Infinity are multi-weapons or have the choice between two different ammo types. Tags pretty much exclusively use multi-weapons, hypermagnetic rail cannons, Fuhrbacks, or portable autocannons, and hackers have a range of programs of various ammo types, and even the bulk standard, heavy infantry or skirmishers could have multi-rifles, missile launchers, or SMGs. Knowing which ammo could splat a roadblock quicker can again save those precious orders. So what's the mathematical breakdown? Assuming the burst is equal, and this is a damage 13 with no cover, although a HMG and cover would produce similar results, DA, or an additional damage dice, is better up until armor 8, at which point AP will be more likely to get a wound through. It's only a 2% difference at this point, but that's the break point. Below 8, if you can get the burst, then batter in with the DA. AP plus DA versus explosive, as found on the Fuhrback. It gets a little tricky as the numbers are wild, but basically explosive is better on the lower armor, like 4 or less. But AP plus DA very quickly takes over. I think this combo of more dice and AP means it swings hard. As such, I largely recommend the AP plus DA against anything with any sort of armor. Okay, but what about my tag? I've got to swallow an ARO against the Salamander. What's my best choice? Do I use the explosive or the AP to punch through? Well, against the Salamander, explosive is the best choice. Same with against the Avatar on Armor 9. However, this is the only edge case scenario. Against Armor 10, such as a Yotum, the multi-HMG with +1 damage, again assuming equal burst, you want to use AP to punch through the armor. But like before, it's only a 2% swing, so don't expect your big swings every game. Finally, a note about AP versus shock. That at armor 3 against a unit with no shock immunity, such as most medium infantry, if you're confident your opponent won't revive the model, use the AP as it's much more likely to go unconscious. But if you need it dead, then use the shock. You're less likely to do a wound, but a single lucky hit will remove it from the table. However, due to the prevalence of shock immunity, then shock will rarely matter, and armor piercing rules supreme on the multi-weapons. Tip 4. Never declare idle if you're just shooting, hacking, or button pushing. Why? Well, it's pretty simple. Movement in Infinity grants 360-degree view, so rather than declare idle and lose a loss of line of fire, instead choose to move 0 inches or even just a little bit to rotate. This could save you being shot in the back, either on this order or later on when you leave a spot where your opponent can see you. You can see this in my acquisition game. I probably need to redo the battle report for that because I didn't record the audio. But I did declare move on my Mendoza to shoot the Speculo, then forgot to move, and got gibbed by the Sphinx as a result. If I hadn't, I could have seriously delayed the Sphinx and won the game more easily. This and another mistake cost me 1/6 of my army list, and meant it really came down to dice rolls, which, as tense as it was, isn't the funnest way to win. So take it from someone who's done this. Declare the move, use the move, and win the game. It's easy to get lazy, but sometimes it's just worth going through it and getting the move and not idling. The final tip is learning what to expect from your opponents, the tactics you see, the tables you play on, and the army they play, not just your own stuff. A lot of Infinity, or very loud parts of it, can focus on general online meta, which is a hodgepodge of various tables, metas, models, and armies, forming some sort of overarching opinion. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't listen to this stuff coming out of it, just think and remember what applies to your meta. So learning your opponent's army can help you as you obviously learn what to expect and hone your list to either counter it in specifically built lists, or into better well-rounded lists for fixed 1 or 2 list events. This also allows you to flex your own army's toolbox and bring a more varied kit to counter these things. Your local opponents might be bringing off-meta units. As such, you'll need to counter these things. I don't often run Knight of Santiago combat jumpers, but some do. As such, some people might need to expect them, for example. You could counter this by bringing this more templates or drop zone repeaters, I have this experience as well, even seeing more on-meta units like the Sphinx. Realizing that I have this strong repeater network and no regular hackers to deal with tags or anything, I decided to bring more Order Sergeants or Knights of Justice hackers in my list to allow for some real area denial. And to some extent, it's helping me set up a better defense. Even Spotlight without guided missiles is really nice for a core-linked BS-14 model. Right, so your opponent's tactics obviously require learning so you don't lose to the same thing every match. So yes, learn them and importantly learn how to counter them. It's nice to learn to react, so learn to be defensive to counter or slow down the alpha strikers. People leaning defensive, it's time to learn how to pick that apart quickly and efficiently without wasting orders. It's also worth being proactive as well and making others react to your tactics. If you can win the lieutenant role, that helps, but if your hacker and repeater network are pretty strong, military orders and Imperial Army are going to struggle with alphas. Or maybe you can alpha them back in because of it, or in general shape the battlefield for you. Finally is learning the tables that you play on. Online in TTS, we play a wide variety, from pretty dense near room-to-room maps to pretty open long fire lanes, and even stuff like multi-layer maps, although I don't really think they're popular. This variety is good, but damn is it hell for consistency. Locally, however, I believe it's much more consistent and down to group preference. And locally it maybe is wild, but it usually tends to lean to maybe more dense or more open. And sometimes it requires a list being built to the table more than the opponent, or tweaking your list to suit it. For example, in a dense map, you will really want to load up on templates and warbands, or in a long range map, MSV, smoke and snipers, or even massive tags to deal with the fire lanes. You'll need to adapt or else you're gonna struggle. Infinity, unlike some wargames, is a game where the map and the mission can very much become your second opponent. Hopefully with all this, you can see why net decking beyond general outlines can be really rough for Infinity. Like, if you know what you're going to place with, then it's fine. It's going to get a bit easier, but it's very much not plug and play like 40k, which I think is a sign of a decent system. So that was the 5 tips to help you learn to play Infinity. I hope you got something from this. If you did, let me know below and like the video if you liked the video. Also, let me know if there's any tips that you think are worth sharing. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.